84% of deals are either won or lost before a salesperson even knows they exist. Welcome to the next edition of Generation Marketing, our podcast that drills down into the practical and progressive ways to do B2B marketing in the tech sector. Today, I'm joined by a familiar face, Gabe. Welcome,
Hello.
Gabe.
Hat-trick appearance.
Yep, that's good. Gabe is one of our senior success managers here at Cremarc. And today we're doing something slightly different. So rather than just talk about what we normally talk about or what we want to talk about, we're going to lean into a paper that's just come out from Cremarc Labs and really sort of go, does it make sense? Is it right? But before we do that, should we talk a little bit about what Cremarc Labs is all about?
Yeah, sure. I don't think we've mentioned Cremarc Labs before on the podcast. Cremarc Labs really is it's kind of an offshoot, really, isn't it, of Cremarc? The idea being that we look forward for clients rather than in the day-to-day of what we're doing at the moment. So part of that is kind of always innovating, isn't it? Really challenging ourselves and also clients on what the world actually looks like, what the world actually needs from a marketing perspective, and making sure we think about those things.
Yeah, it's right. I think sometimes you're so focused on today that you lose track of what is possible and what you can do or what you can do differently. So yeah, the remit of Cremarc Labs is to go away and go, think of the crazy, think of the different, think of what's stupid and change it. So they've come up with a report that like scared me the first time I saw it because the title is 5 Lies of B2B Growth, which is like, okay, we don't do lying.
Yeah, well, you said when you first saw it, you were like, absolutely not, we can't do this. We can't be talking about lies. It's all very negative. But actually, when we dug into it, it made total sense.
Well, first of all, in marketing, always talk about the positive, not a negative, right? Yeah. But it really sort of drills down into the myths. So today, I think it would be really good if we could drill into each one of those and go, have they got it right? Have they not got it right? What do we think? So I think the first one is around attribution. Attribution shows us what's working and not working.
Yeah, and we've touched on this in probably every episode so far, I think.
I think so, yeah.
We've spoken about direct attribution and how this kind of rise in digital marketing, where we have all these different tools that can be measured, has given marketers this focus on tactics first rather than strategy first, which is a big problem, right? Because you end up defaulting to the things that you can measure because you feel like, well, I can attribute my results to it and my budget's being cut unless I can show what I've had, as in terms of involvement in a deal. So therefore, I can only really do the channels that I can prove I'm having a positive effect with. So this kind of direct attribution view has killed the actual strategic focus, and it's totally wrong. And that's, I suppose, the lie we're talking about is attribution tells me what's working. Well, no, it doesn't. It tells you what you can measure, which is a very different thing.
Yeah, I often have this principle in business is worry about what you don't know about, not just what you know about. And the thing is, as well, we've seen this and we talked about this a few times before, or lots of times before, that a lot of that buying journey is almost under the radar. So somebody will come in from one route and then they'll come back another route and then they'll look at something else. Sometimes they'll click cookie consent, sometimes they won't. And sometimes they'll fill in their details, but many, many times they won't until they're ready. So you're almost marketing in the dark. So if you've got this fixation on if we can't measure it, we can't do it, then we're missing a trick, right?
Yeah, and it's a really good point. There's so many untrackable things and untraceable things, rather, that users do, that, journeys buyers take that we just have no idea about. And Colin, our head of content, talks about the dark funnel, where we talk about that stat. Is it 80% of the journey is now self-serve, right? So B2B buyers, especially B2B tech buyers, are looking around, exploring what type of brands they want to work with. A lot of that, I think there is a stat actually in the Cremarc Labs report that is, on average, buyers consume 7 pieces of content for the brand they want to work with before even engaging with them, right? In terms of reaching out with inquiry. So when we talk about the dark funnel, it's really important to note that a lot of that engagement is untraceable, right? We're putting that content out and we have to kind of expect that the content's good enough and we know it conveys the right message without going, well, that person's read that, which means we need to retarget them with this and send them this email off the back of it.
Yeah, we talked a lot about it. It's no longer a journey. It's almost this random sort of string of events, and it's understanding those. And a good example of that attribution thing, it was only yesterday, we were talking to a potential customer, and the first thing we always ask is, where did you hear about us? And they clearly couldn't remember. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because that means that they've engaged with us multiple times, multiple different ways, to then get to a point where they say, hand up, want to talk to you.
And to let kind of the viewers behind the curtain here, one of the sort of tactics we use at Cremarc is making sure that our directory presence is good, right? So big places that people who want to buy from agencies go to are the digital agency network and the Drum recommends, because they want to see real reviews and credibility of the agencies before they kind of get in touch and make a huge mistake by picking one that didn't really have any credibility. So what we do is we speak to our clients and we ask them to leave us reviews if they're happy, if they're not happy, you know, that kind of warts and all, this is the services that I really think excel at Cremarc. And that's great because we have that presence. Whether someone clicks through to our website then, which is trackable through UTMs, or just sees us there, is the same value, right? Because although we can't attribute anything to the latter, where they don't click a link, doesn't mean it's not valuable. It's hugely valuable because they've seen us on the Drum recommends, right?
Yeah. So what we're saying is, attribution is not wrong, and trying to measure as much as you can isn't wrong, but don't get hung up on it. Don't do the things you can't measure, because they're as important as the things you can measure, right?
Yeah, and Mary, I think, put it really well in episode 2 or 3 of the podcast. I can't remember now. Maybe episode 3, when she said, measure your digital marketing holistically on revenue gain, sales uplift, because if you just look at which channels are activated and therefore, you know, which ones are working, which ones aren't, you kind of miss the whole point. You're not trying to make that channel super effective. You're trying to make your marketing mix as a whole effective.
Correct. Brilliant.
So let's talk about the next of the lies that we mentioned in the report. It's a really interesting one, this. Your next customer is only one click away. I think it's a lie that a lot of maybe business leaders believe, because that's what performance marketers have told them, maybe incorrectly.
Yeah, I think marketing people are waking up to this one, that it doesn't happen like that anymore. It used to be a case of the more ads you ran, the more clicks you got, the more form fills you got, the more leads you generated. And there's a few people in that perpetual loop at the moment of going, if I just put more budget in this, get more budget in this. And it's almost like they're trying to run faster to stand still. But I think that the true bit, you hit the nail on the head there, it's the pressure from sales leaders in particular, right? And then business leaders saying, I need more leads, I need more leads quickly. They're out there. Why aren't they clicking on our website? We need to do that education of those sales leaders and business leaders, that it's not a click, form fill lead. We talked about it in the last question around this sort of, people want to self-serve. So 60, 70, 80% of the buying process is now done away from the sales teams, so before they want to talk to a salesperson. So that's not one click, I want to talk to a salesperson. That's one click, and then your multiple pieces of content you talked about. So it's all around that. So it's understanding that it's a longer cycle, and therefore you've got to build the momentum, and then you've got to maintain the momentum, and then over time you get the run rate coming in. But that is not a valve you can just turn on and turn off immediately. So it's no longer that quick fire campaign or that silver bullet that everyone dreams of that's going to get you loads of clicks and loads of leads.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to be careful what I say here. I'm not saying UX and CRO are kind of irrelevant. They are so important, making sure that everything is structured in a way that makes it easy for users to convert. But the likelihood of users converting on first touch point is almost unheard of, right? So when people think that they can run a campaign, and especially, you know, like a lead gen campaign on a paid media platform, or an email campaign to a cold list, if you think people are going to convert on the first couple of touch points, you're totally mad. And that's the lie we're really talking about, is it takes multiple touch points. I don't think there's a stat in the report, but we spoke about it while we were putting it together, which is around the average is about 12 touch points now for basic inquiries or something, right? That's a lot more than just one.
Yeah, and it's a couple of things as well. It's a compounding effect, that the more people engage with your content, the more they become familiar, trusted, or trusting in you, and that leads to that engagement. But you're right. Things like conversion rate optimization, I think the term needs to change a little bit, because it's not trying to get more conversions. What it's doing is trying to take the barriers away. So at the end of the day, today's buyers engage when they want to buy. the job of marketers is to make it easy when they're ready and make those hooks so they contact you. But the main thing is to sort of set the scene or warm them up or give them that information to build the trust. So when they are ready, it's you they connect with and not somebody else.
Yeah, and there's a really good point in there that buyers only inquire when they actually want to buy. I think that might be one of the reasons why a lot of B2B marketers now are getting less lead volume overall, because their buyers, a decade ago, they would download an ebook, a gated ebook, and knowing that those details will be put into some mailing list somewhere, and they'd probably get a phone call from a salesperson at some point. But I think all of that, it's made people scared. They don't want to give their details away until right at that last minute, especially when we say they only really want to engage with sales in the last 10% of that buying journey.
Yeah.
So, of course, overall, your lead volume is going to go down,
Yeah.
but you won't be working as hard, and it'll be more efficient for those lesser volume of deals.
Yeah, I think we're going to come on to this a bit later, but it does mean that the balance has changed. So before, where it used to be, I don't know, 10, 20% marketing, 80% sales, it's the other way around now. As you said about working less hard, it's actually marketing has to work harder, right? Because we've got to nurture people through that sales process, where before that buying process, before then they engage with a real life salesperson. So yeah, there's a lot more focus on content, a lot more focused on digital journeys, it's more focused on going back to the point before, being ubiquitous in terms of being everywhere that they're looking or they're present.
Yeah, it's that idea of everything everywhere all at once, and taking a step back and holistically looking at, brilliant, I've got this presence and I'm really fulfilling my strategy. And it takes you away from that tactic-led, I'm doing this on this channel and I'm doing this on this channel. It is that holistic view.
Yeah.
So you're right. And I suppose maybe a question for you. Why do you think that shift has happened, right? Why do you think buyers want that kind of self-serve journey more so now?
I think because there's more choice, there's more information, it's easier to access that information. I'm old enough to remember the way you used to get information is go to a trade show, right? And you trawl around all the stands, you get the information, or you get pulled onto stands by salespeople that wouldn't let you off until they scanned your badge, and then they'd pester you to the end of time. Now you don't have to wait to the annual trade show. You can Google, or you can go to ChatGPT or Copilot, and you can put in what is the best ERP solution for a small company in the publishing sector. Right, you can go down to that granular detail and get that information back. So it's easy to do that research. And as consumers, we're used to doing that, right? Most people now go to TripAdvisor rather than trawl all the different resorts and hotels and travel companies.
Yeah, directories, comparison sites, the rise of them, but also you're right, the fact that the world is just easier to self-serve now.
Yes.
Yeah, and people love on demand, right?
Yeah.
We can see that if we just look economically at the world.
Yeah.
We've got more streaming sites than we ever had before.
Yeah.
YouTube is, I think, one of the biggest search engines in the world. I think it's second behind Google, which
Learn how
Google
to do
owns.
anything, right?
Exactly, right? Everyone wants that on-demand information, and it's no different when they're searching for which brand they want to work with.
Yeah, but we still assume that they're gonna see an ad, click on it, put in all their contact details, and then stand by the phone waiting for it to ring to speak to a sales guy. Doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, and you mentioned like ChatGPT there, and how modern day buyers might search on ChatGPT for the types of brands they want to work for, or work with rather, whether it's top of funnel, middle of funnel, or bottom of funnel in that traditional view. They might just go to ChatGPT and kind of do that whole funnel very quickly themselves in 3 questions. So that's something we're looking at with Cremarc Labs right at the moment. Is this it's called Geo, but it's generative engine optimization, which is just, I suppose, an offshoot of SEO. And it's how can we as brands be more found through ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Copilot, those GPTs that people go to,
which will become more and more relevant as we move forward.
Yeah, and we'll have to do an episode on it, because there's so many interesting things that the team are finding out at the moment. But I think one of the things is it's not that dissimilar from SEO. It's just about structuring your data in the right way, so that almost how you used to, that we've always done, so that Google's crawlers can read your web pages and content in the right way. You're just slightly tweaking that so that these GPTs can read your content in the same way, right?
Yeah. But that's what buyers want, right? They want They want a summary. They want the 2-minute version. They don't want to go on to a 1-hour webinar or have to have a sales guy come and knock on their door and spend copious hours with them. They want to get to the crux of the matter. What's important to them? Does this work for me? Who else is doing it? And they can get all of that online.
100%. I think the funniest sort of example of that type of overly complex content isn't actually in the B2B world, but it's have you ever looked up a recipe for something?
Yeah.
And then the first half of this thing is like, when I was 8, I first discovered oatmeal cookies, and then it's like this long random kind of blog article about their life that took them from that first oatmeal cookie discovery through to creating their first recipe, and then you get to the recipe that you actually wanted to see. And taking that structured data at the end, people just effectively skip to that now. So that's where, if you structure it in the right way, you can get past all of this, and buyers are wisening up to that.
Well, I'm giggling because I did exactly that and it was a disaster. I should have read the topic.
Should have read the blog.
Brilliant. Right, let's move on to the next one. Sales closes deals and marketing just supports. Now, this is probably controversial depending on where you sit, whether you're in marketing or sales, or it may be a bit controversial to both. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think people will say there's a bias because we work in marketing, but there is so much data that backs this up now. And we spoke a lot about it in episode 2 or 3, whenever we spoke about brand building. And there's that really, really great stat that 4 in 5 B2B tech buyers have their shortlist of brands that they want to work with before they inquire. And if we add that into the fact that people only engage 80% through the buying journey, well, that kind of tells us that majority of the work has already been done by the time they inquire. So yes, I totally get that sales have to close the deal. They have to build a great proposal. Of course, they've got to take it over the finish line. But the majority of the race is run by marketing. As an interesting analogy, but you see the point.
I don't think all sales guys are going to agree with that somehow. Like, we pass you the ball, you just shoot it in at the end. No.
Well, it's a relay, right? I suppose is that a good way of thinking about it?
And I think so many times I talk to organizations and business owners or sales leaders or business owners that are really come from a sales world, and their usual line is, we just need to get in front of them and we can sell it. We can close the deal. And that's easy to say, but now it's more difficult, as we've just talked about, to get in front. So it's not that one click, have a meeting, then sales can go and do all of the selling. There's so much of that selling, or so much of the buy-in is happening before you can have that conversation. So yeah, my belief is that the sales have still got a lot of work to do, because closing a deal is a very tricky operation. However, as you've just said, if marketing haven't done their job right, sales don't even get a look in, right? They don't get that opportunity to close. And this takes me back. I'm sorry, I'm rambling now, but going back many, many years, at least 4, 5, 6 years, I can remember sitting down with a client at the time and was having that whole debate, the role of sales and marketing. And we talked about, it used to be sales directed marketing, and at that moment, we're saying, no, this is shifting. This is now becoming marketing directed selling, because what we're doing is marketing is working out the targets. Marketing is working out the proposition. Marketing is getting that brand trust and that awareness. And then sales is going in, and marketing doesn't stop. That's the other bit. It used to be silos. Marketing colored in, generated the leads, threw it over the wall. Sales did all the hard work. That doesn't happen anymore. We've got clients that are running paid media campaigns to prospects, to people they've got in their opportunity funnel, because they're trying to broaden the amount of people that they're talking to and the messaging and support it. So yeah, like you, I believe that is a myth that is old school, not new school, and we've got to change the thinking on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of clients that I've spoken to, when they first come on board, one of the objectives they give us usually is, we need more leads, right? And they tell us, as you said, just get us in front of them, we'll sell to them. When you have a small volume of leads and they're only inbound inquiries, you're only really dealing with, from a sales perspective, you're only really dealing with those people who already want to work with you. So of course your conversion rate is 1 in 4, 1 in 3, 1 in 2. Right? Of course it is, because they're people who have reached out to you and have said, I want to work with you. Of course it's a good conversion rate. what happens is when you up that lead volume, you activate marketing, you start generating a higher volume of leads, the conversion rate drops. And of
Yep.
course it drops because the number's going up, but it drops more so because sales go, oh yeah, just get us in front of them.
Yep.
And you get them in front of those people.
Yep.
And it's not the same conversion rate.
Yep.
That's because marketing needs that time to generate those opportunities properly
Yep.
by selling to them through marketing.
Yes.
If you generate leads like ebook downloaders, for example,
Yep.
that type of quick win lead, it's not the same. Sales, they can get in front of them, but they're not selling to them.
Yeah.
It's a different type of conversation entirely.
Yeah. I think the other point on that is I've done lots of sales training. I did something called target account selling, which one of the things it does is map out the buying committee. So all the different people, or what is their needs, their aspirations and everything else. So as a salesperson, you can then navigate all those people. And it's almost like you become a chameleon. You can change your story or change your focus depending on who you're talking to. Well, now that's happening in marketing, right? When we look at, we don't talk about MQLs anymore. We talk about account-based lead scoring, right? So we're looking at the total buying committee, all the different people and the engagement of that. And each one of those, we're going with a slightly different nuance on the messaging to address their particular pain issues. So a lot of that work is still happening. Now that still makes it hard for the sales guy because once he's then inheriting it, he's getting a lot more insight from marketing. He's getting profiles into the buying committee and having to work a bigger buying committee than he used to in terms of one person is your key decision maker and that's the person you need to influence.
I think that's where the stuff that Rob spoke about in the ABM episode is fascinating, where we talk about the buying committee as a whole, those decision-making units where you have a cluster level value proposition, an account level value proposition, and then you have an individual persona level value proposition. That's incredible, right? Because we're effectively taking a brand message, we're making it specific to their company, but we're making it even then more specific to the finance person in that company, to the whoever you're targeting, right? The leader of that company, the operations person in that company. And everyone needs a slightly different view.
Yeah. I think going back to the original point, who does what? I think the key now to success is sales and marketing working like this, working together, because there's no silos. It's not one does one and one does the other. It's working in parallel through that buying cycle that straddles digital, face-to-face, etc., and moves it all the way through the stages.
Yeah.
Okay, let's leave it here. Obviously, these myths and lies have just brought up so many different avenues to discuss and talk around. So we can go on for another hour. So I think we'll park it there and take the remaining lies and cover them in the next episode, which we'll try and do in the next couple of weeks. I know there's one in particular you really want to drill down on.
Yeah, so we want to talk about how sales cycles are getting longer, buying committees are getting larger, and what that impact is on kind of lead qualification and marketing in general, which I think will be a really interesting one to cover.
Yeah, brilliant. So as I say, we'll try and launch that in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned, but we hope you enjoy this episode. If you've got any questions, any comments, then please leave a comment for us. Please subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And if you want to reach out to us directly, you can do so on podcast@cremarc.com. Thank you.